Yes, my family. Oh, blessed love, give thanks to each and every one. Salamta Tenestalin to all the joyous loved ones in the house this evening. This is definitely a special sit down, in the name of Kadamawe Haile Selassie. We glorify Father and Mother of creation and give thanks continually, for this is, as I said, a special moment. We have the rabbi with us. We have Rastafari sabbatical with us. We have our brethren Rasiadonis, who is sitting with us tonight in the tiger's nest. And I mean, for sure, I'm sure that a lot of our listeners and people in the audience definitely know of the good brother. And of course, the works he's been doing, I mean, internationally, way beyond the internet stuff. But for sure, we must say, as far as Rastafari on the internet, for a decade plus, Rastafari sabbatical has definitely been, opening the way and shining the light. Many of us kind of missed it when it kind of disappeared, but we're going to get an understanding of really what took place there, and let me say, before I go too far, for those who've been looking for the rabbi himself, you could check him YouTube-wise on Rastafari Jews. That's the name of the channel, the Rastafari Jews. But I know he's going to give you some more information and exactly website and everything and how to link up with the Lion of Judah Society, etc., etc. But blessed love, my brethren, give thanks for coming into the Tiger's Nest. It's a great honor to have the eye here with I and I. I tell the eye the truth.
Yes, I. Salam to Tina still into the eye, to the eye's audience, and to all listeners now and in the future. Yes, I. Rastafari.
Yes, my Lord.
All right.
Yes, my Lord, I mean, as I said, I'm sure most of the audience, as Rastafari, would know of the eye on the internet and the information that you've been bringing out, and a lot of occult information too. Because to be very honest, I honestly believe that is why you disappeared for a moment, because I always said to myself, I don't know what it is you could be saying. You know me? I mean, they pulled out a few of my videos for different, I may go into something about abortion. They don't like to hear about that. I might be talking about some vaccine, something. But the ideas usually stick on the underground knowledge and information, especially when it comes to the system too. I deal with a lot of spiritualness with the Christ and the Christ man and the Christos, but yet still you touch Babylon and you dig them sometimes when it comes to their system, what we are seeing and what we're not seeing. So the eye disappeared for a moment, off the radar, and a lot of people have been asking for the eye. So it is just a joy that the eye could come and sit with us and, let us know where you are, how we can link up again, and how we can continue to get that good information. But we have a moment this evening, family. My Lord, I just want the eye to reintroduce yourself to the family. I want you to tell us a bit about the Lion of Judah Society and let us know a bit of who Rasiadonis really is, beyond the different teachings and the knowledge that we gave. My Lord, Rastafari.
Rastafari. I, Rasiadonis, Tafari, Yadin for short. Yadin for short, but Rasiadonis, Tafari. I am I. You know what I mean? I and I, Rastafari. I asked God concerning the Lion of Judah Society, and I was about to, I didn't know like where to actually begin except with the inspiration of Rastafari, and with how I became aware of, you could say, the culture, the reality, Ethiopia, His Majesty. And it was because of seeing His Majesty as the center and the Lion of Judah, we named it that because there was no other name to say it. The word society, let me first of all explain society. It was in studying the Amharic. The word society is the word mahiber, or that particular word right there in His Majesty's Bible is the word that we might find for like congregation or association, but actually it comes from the sense of solidarity, cooperation. In fact, in the Hebrew, when we say haber, right? It's like associate, And the root of the word actually means not so much society, but association and almost like the unity. So when you mention about unity, it actually means, you know, coming together, solidarity, the idea of solidarity. But in a religious sense, it would be like the word like in the Bible in Old Testament, where it says like the congregation of Israel. So to name something for us to come together in knowledge and awareness, the Lion of Judah is his society, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, you know, the tribe of Judah, which is our people. In fact, the brethren of mine asked me about Judaism. In fact, I was about to pull up on my phone on the WhatsApp. Actually, the first international vice president of the Ethiopian World Federation, I had to hail him up, Brother Obadiah. He asked me, he said, do you think that Judaism is a religion or like a religious faith or a culture? And I recalled His Majesty Kanamawi Haile Selassie, his word years ago I had read, where he said that language is the key of culture. Language is the key of culture. I thought it was interesting. This is more than 20 years ago. I said, language is the key of culture. I said, It was strange to me, language, you know, because people say a lot of things is key of culture. You know, what is the key of culture? But it is the language. The language is almost like people go and they research and they dig up things in ancient Egypt and archaeology. But what about the linguistic archaeology? You know what I mean? So it's the linguistic and the language. So the language was very important because when His Majesty said that language is the key of culture, I began to recognize that that is the key of culture, language, you know, the language. I'm going to say I and I, Rastafari, I and I. Though patois may not be I as a so-called Black Americans main mode, but it's what unites I and I, even as Rastafari. You know, when we say I and I, you know, come from that root. So that linguistic, it brings it together in a culture, you know what I mean? And not a culture that's just maybe from the inspiration through the Caribbean, you know, but a culture that is Rastafari. So the Lion of Judah Society is what it says. It's the association of those in the tribe of Judah and in that consciousness of Haile Selassie. You know, so instead of naming Rasta this or Rastafari that, there was nothing's already named Rasta this, Rastafari that. I wondered why there was nothing named the Lion of Judah. You know what I mean? It was like only the Christians name things Lion of Judah. You know, when you go just research Lion of Judah this, Lion of Judah that. It's only the Christians there.
You think he's a king coming up, eh?
That's basically, it's kind of like banner. It go back to the psalm where it says that he give a banner to them that fear, that reverence, that respect him. He give a banner to them. And it's that banner of the Lion of Judah that is so uniting. You know, that banner there with the Lion of Judah, you know, on it. That was the uniting factor. I would say that basically is at the root. But we began off in Brooklyn College with the Lion of Judah banner. And it was because in Brooklyn College, enough speaking, you know, knowledge, you know, young Black people from all over, from America, from the Caribbean, from Africa. We all got together.
This is the 80s, you say? The 80s.
This is the late 80s. This is like, what was it, between 87 to, I would say, 89. Wow. I would say by that time, 87 to 89. And officially, I would say 1989 officially at Brooklyn College. It was Brooklyn College. It was at Brooklyn College. And we needed a platform to reason. For example, in school, the school, Brooklyn, I would say Junior Academy, that was where I went to when I was young, Brooklyn Junior Academy, a Black private school. But Brooklyn College, in Brooklyn College, it was mainly European, white, Ashkenazi, Jewish. You know, I hope that doesn't get the eye flag by saying that, but it's just a fact, you know, a fact of life, you know, who's who, right? And they had all sort of clubs and groups for this. They had like the Caribbean Students Union, the Black Students Union, but we were disunited. This was at the time when they were seeking to kick out a lot of the Black students and like raise tuition and things. So we started to protest and activism, a lot of the activism back in the late 80s, early 90s. And in this process, we want to know more about ourselves. And we found a lot of good books One thing I want to hail up all Black writers and researchers, and let's keep up the books and the ideas, the thought process. And a lot of the books that we found wasn't being researched in wasn't anywhere in the curriculum in school. And they had a little divvy thing to tell how far I and I go. Like,
yeah, man, yeah, the divvy talk they watch.
Yeah, called like the African studies. It was like a little corner in the history department. So we decided we would have like an academic club, and a lot of ones were joining fraternities. The Greek fraternities. And I must admit, this is also and sororities where we had our first. This is when Heru Neset Ra. I mentioned that because I know that I also studies the ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, ancient Kush, ancient, you know what I mean? The ancient, you could say Kemetic knowledge, right? And so they were called Heru Neset Ra. Heru Neset, I think the N and Ra. That's what they calls himself. This is also the same time when Leonard Jeffries, and hail up to Dr. Leonard Jeffries, when he was going to live his fight at, I think it was it Cornell or Columbia, one of the
Cornell University.
Yeah, this is at that time. And so we had a lot of events. This was right at the beginning of the 90s when I came into Black consciousness, when Frances Cress Welsing was doing her lectures. And she was still, before she had the book, she was passing it out on 8.5 by 11 legal size.
ISIS paper.
Yeah, the ISIS paper, but it was each individual. If you look at the ISIS paper, it has different essays.
Yes, yes.
Individual writings. You get inspired and you write the thing and you put it forward. And you just grind on that for a while, right? And then you come again with another thing. And then after a while, you have all these different things, and somebody says, king or queen, put it all together in one volume, right? So at this early day and time, we said, let's start an academic club. And we called it Lion of Judah fraternity. And Lion brought his sorority. And because our brothers, Black brothers and sisters had started a Kemetic fraternity, you know what I mean? With Kemetic letters and Kemetic, you say doctrine and viewpoint. We said, well, let's start the first Ethiopic frat. Because when we started to study, we said, wait, they got it from the Ethiopians. And even the original Greeks were Black people, but even the original Greeks and got it from the Ethiopians. So why are we calling ourselves like by Greek letter, instead of by Ethiopian letters? Remember the language being the key of culture now.
Definitely.
So that's really, that's the embryonic seed right there. We needed a place in college, in the academic world, to study things about ourselves that we were finding, but there was no room within the curriculum of, you could say, white racism, white supremacy for it at that time. So we utilize our student freedom to start a academic fraternity, sorority, and to study books, where we had like a book club. I'll read a book. In fact, the eye remind me of a brother of mine, brother named Zephaniah. Haven't seen him for a while, you know what I mean? But when I first saw the eye video, I said, Chan, I said, who he, Priest Isaac? I said, I remember this brother as brother Zephaniah, brother. So I always thought for a moment, because I favor, him. When I see the eye, the first person I remind me of is this brother. He's one of like two other brothers at the school. We were conscious enough to do things both for Black people, but with an Ethiopia and a Rastafari focus, because that's always has been like the least studied. In fact, I'm on this whole thing about Ethiopia, the missing link in Bible prophecy, based on Reverend Sterling M. Means' book years ago.
Ethiopia, the missing link.
The missing link in African history. I'm beginning to recognize that Ethiopia, well, not recognize, but see the connection, more connections of how Ethiopia has been marginalized. Even when we study Egypt, the Egyptians or the Kemites, right? The Mitzrayim, they said that their origins was from inner Africa or inner Ethiopia from the headwaters of the Nile. And they called the region of Ethiopia, the Horn of Africa, the Kui land, the God land. So you would say that even with the study of Kemetic studies, Ethiopia would, you know, and I has brought it out with the dog star Cyrus, the connection of the heavens, His Majesty's birth, and how it reflects on the ancient theology. So that was the origin of Lion of Judah. It was as a way to study academic society. And from there, we got to recognize that more and more of the people that we were able to use the system, like the school and the books, and there was ones outside of that we use the system to reach. You know, we were the ones like the talented 10th, going to school and write these books, able to read and decipher all this information. But a lot of our brothers and sisters and the elders, I got to confirm a lot of things that the elders were teaching me. You know, a lot of our elders wasn't highly literate, scholastic, but they had, you know, they had wisma, right? And from that wisma, they said things that those of us who could read and write and more scholastic, we could verify. I said, Chad, this elder said something that sounded totally out there, but I'm actually now digging deep into what they're hiding in the books, and I'm finding it here. So we use Lion of Judah and the banner as a way to display more information out there, and got to find out that though it began in a college collegiate environment, we had to reach our people out in the street, you know, out in the world. So that's more or less the overview of the seed of how Lion of Judah society started. We started academically as a fraternity and a sorority, the first, we might say, within the City University of New York, you know, within that whole system of things.
Yes, my Lord. Give thanks. Language being the foundation of a culture. If that's the right, if I'm quoting you right.
I said language is the key. I can find that language is the key of culture and communication, man and man. Language is the key of culture and communication between man and man. This is why we call, I'll bring the statement forward and, you know, share it with the family.
Right, but I definitely lean a lot on language, you know, the Amharic, and of course, the Hebrew. Now, I remember in the Black Supremacy written by the Honorable King Emmanuel, Prince Emmanuel, he mentions that we need to go back to our original tongue. And he says we need to learn Hebrew and Amharic. He actually highlight those two. I guess most Rastaman would say these two, you know, because number one, the emperor, the Amhara people, Amharic, and of course, Hebrew directly related to the Bible. Now, I'm not a linguist by a long shot, you know. I just speak what you hear me speaking. I may know a word here and there, but I definitely am not giving no. I think I may even know more Kiswahili than I know Hebrew and Amharic.
Very important.
Yeah, but how do I balance Hebrew and Amharic from a real scholastic point of view? I'm looking. When I say scholastic, I mean, okay, not trying to compare, you know, but I know one had to perceive the other. Plus, Amharic, you could tell me if I'm wrong or you know, correct or what, but Amharic is one of many, many languages in Ethiopia and has come to the forefront, definitely because of political reasons, you know. So those of us who may be distant from Ethiopia may feel everybody in Ethiopia talk Amharic. Of course, it is, if I'm not mistaken, the second language, the first language, and then English, the second language. Again, maybe for political reasons. And then, of course, there's the Ge'ez, which would have preceded it from my historical understanding, and the Coptic. So when it comes to the language, I know I see you balance both of them, the Amharic and the Hebrew. Is there a reason for that? Is there one which is more pure, you know, the direct language of God? And then I want to ask you too, you know, about that whole thing about the J. I think you're the right person to put me in alignment. Once we talk about, there's no J in Hebrew, which, okay, that may be so. But again, in my humble novice level as such, I have an Ethiopian Bible, Ethiopian dictionary right here, and it speaks about the word His Majesty. John Hoy, also Zhang Hoy, or there's one other one, I can't remember it. So I see many words in the Amharic with the J, but one will argue that he would. So just give me a little understanding of the language, the importance of these languages, if there's another language we need to pay attention to, because I understand Hebrew came from the Aramic. That's why I wanted us to look at it on a very scholarly level.
My brother, my scholar, my Lord Priest Isaac. Yeah, my brother. No, the way that I just tied that in right there. I like how I just tied that in right there. Right. On the language, I just grabbed this right here. This is His Majesty selected speeches, and there's the speech that is known as the what is it called? Revised Amharic Bible. It's called the Revised Amharic Bible speech. That particular speech of the Rastafari, of all the Rastafari, I have this little point that, yeah, I know we say certain ones was the first Rasta, but actually the first Rastafari is Kedema Haile Selassie. Right. Just have to say that right here. But on the Revised Amharic language, Revised Amharic Bible, right? Revised Amharic Bible. In that particular speech right there, and check this out, in His Majesty's selected speeches, official printing from Ethiopia, right? Chapter 15, and chapter 15 is a chapter called Culture, right? And the third utterance, golden utterance of His Majesty. The third one is the Revised Amharic Bible. I just want to pull this up right here, 616. Now this, originally when His Majesty revealed and published his Bible, the King of Kings Bible, in 1961. Now, originally the Bible was in the press. His Majesty already had vision for bringing forward his own translation from the ancient languages. And this is at the time when the Lotalians, the fascisti, the Romanists were invading Ethiopia and everything. And that was the first Haile Selassie Bible. There's an older copy that he first was printing and having published. Now, I mention all this to say, in this particular word sound, when you ask about balancing the language, right around here, His Majesty says, as you get through this particular speech right here. Now, this speech, as we said, was the forward, what we call the mekdem. If you could listen to the word, right, being linguist or not, just listen to the word sound as a Rasta elders teach. Mekdem come from kedem. Kedem in the Amharic, or kedeme, which means to proceed, to go before, can mean to confront also, to be first, or really to be for the first. It's like a forerunner, right? The word kedeme, and in the Hebrew is kadam, but in here, mekdem means forward or preface. You get the idea, pre going before, like the Edamawi sense, really before the first, but before the first. But right here, he said, when all honor and praise be to God, we had brought about the liberation of Ethiopia and had entered our empire, realizing that there ought to be a revision from the original Hebrew and Greek of the existing translation of the Bible. And then he goes on to say how he chose scholars qualified for the work of biblical training and how this book came about. So right there where His Majesty points out the original Hebrew and Greek, the process of His Majesty's Bible that makes Haile Selassie's Bible very unique among Bibles and even among Ethiopian Bibles is when His Majesty first brought about as Rastafari, the translation, the process of translation. In fact, the reason why we have so many translations available and is because of His Majesty. A lot of the Ethiopian books where you see some books are in one side is like prayer books and books, and the other side is Amharic. His Majesty started that process. He brought in the printing press. You know what I mean? And it printed both religious and secular, more or less secular things, religious things and secular things. And His Majesty in the in his autobiography, book 1, there's a whole chapter where he goes into, even his schooling and retooling the church. He brought about a book that was lost called the Methafe Teklil, which means like to crown, the book of crowning. And this is the book that is like a book of matrimony. So you see in the Orthodox Tawahedo marriages where the man and woman is being crowned, where the man it's like a coronation. If you see the Ethiopian Orthodox, the weddings, but his dad found a book that was lost to the church for a while. And His Majesty had found this book and had it republished and reprinted and brought about that process of the crowning of man and woman in the church, all through the fact of finding the document, printing it, having it translated in the language, the Amharic that the young and the old understood. So in explaining the balancing of the language, first of all, the first translation was based on the Ethiopian the Ethiopic manuscripts, right? That Ethiopia already have, they have many old manuscripts. So the first process of His Majesty's Bible was translating it from what they already had, right? And this is during the time of the fascist invasion, when His Majesty said that the book was still in the press when the Italians came in. So what they did was able to Xerox copies, for people like Psalms and other areas to strengthen, prizes and bun Babylon through the word, sound, poverty, right? And then after liberation, right, it was thought that, well, now we need to, continue the publishing and the printing process, but we also need to check the original Hebrew. Right now in Amharic, the speech is in Amharic. This word sound actually is in Amharic of the Revised Amharic Bible speech. He says in Amharic, he says, Mesaratawi Kwankwa Evrayist. Mesaratawi. Mesaratawi, basically, Mesarat is foundation. Mesaratawi is foundational. Kwankwa is the term for language. Right? It's more influenced by the Cushitic. We could get into that influence there. And he said, so the foundational language, Hebrew. So what he's referring to is, remember, Ethiopia first received scriptures in Old Testament time. People forget that. Later on, received scriptures again in New Testament times. So there's two set of manuscripts that Ethiopia has. It has older manuscripts from the BC times, and then it has manuscripts from the AD time. I just have to say that certain ones, like certain of the Black scholars out there, I just mentioned Garfield and everything, are somewhat disingenuous when they say that, well, Ethiopia came from the Septuagint. If you study the history, right, it was the 9 saints that came to Ethiopia because some of them were mystics, some of them may have been Gnostics, some of them, their Christianity was different than the prevailing Christianity, than institutional Christianity. They were like I and I. So they had to flee to a place that would accept them for being who they were. So they went to Ethiopia. This is around the 5th century, like around the 500 year, right? So this is when we got later translation of Ethiopians of works from Aramaic, because they were Aramaic, from Syria, Syriac, as well as Septuagint. So I'm trying to say that in the Ethiopia, in the manuscripts and the archives that we have in the link with Ethiopia is the missing link. A lot of these questions are being asked about, are we Israelites? Where's the original manuscripts of the Bible? And how do we know? The proof is Ethiopia. Ethiopia really provides the missing link right there within that whole aspect that's going on now in the Black consciousness among many ones about questioning the Bible, we being Israel. The Ethiopia side of it is the missing link. But just to explain this just quickly right here, because I know I've been on this for a while. But
good man, there's some heavy stuff, eh?
The Hebrew, because I want to refer to things that people can easily access, like selected speeches, right? As well as His Majesty autobiography. So one can see and read and meditate and reason on those same areas of things that I came across that sent I into Medi. And some of it prompted and inspired I to do what I did. You know what I mean? And I'm doing. So I'm just pointing out certain research like the Revised Amharic Bible, His Majesty's Bible. Now, His Majesty's Bible, getting to the root of the matter, the Amharic. Okay, let's go here. Let's go here for a moment. In Zephaniah chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. For then he would turn to the people a pure language from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. Even the daughter of my dispersed, my suppliants to bring my offering. There's that verse in Zephaniah chapter 3, verses 9 and 10 that speak about from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, right? He would turn, right, to the people a pure language. What does pure mean? Because you asked that in the question, in the reasoning, you said about like, what's the pure, when we say pure language, pure. Pure is not the first. Think about for a moment. When we purify something, you ever purate something?
I get you. Clear off the bat.
Yeah, it's not the first. The original is that raw thing. Right?
I get you.
And then
clear.
You might have to refine that. You refine it in a sense.
Some deep stuff there.
Right, King? You take the raw and you make it better. That's what pure means. So a lot of times we have to get to the very root of the ideas we're speaking. Because people say, well, Amharic is not the pure language. I say, yes, it is. They say, Amharic is not the first language. I say, hold on. You changed the goalpost. You said Amharic is not the pure language. I say, yes, it is. And then person would say, Amharic is not the first language? You know what I mean? In other words, they'll ask two questions. They'll say Amharic is not the pure language. And I'll defend that, yes, it's that pure language being spoken of in our estimation, within Zephaniah chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. But then they'll say, they'll confuse pure with original. You know what I mean? Many times people ask me, what do you think the original language is, right? Or what do you think the pure language is? And I speak about Amharic as the pure language.
And let me ask you, why, and before I ask you that, because I see that's a real perfect example you gave when you asked what is pure. Because as you said, most people would think, well, pure gotta be the first, but the way you explain, you refine it. Because language-wise as well, what is called the Meduneta, then, most scholars that speak of it would explain through their study that they come to the conclusion that what we know as the Meduneta today is the language in its higher stage, meaning that it built itself to come to that level, and they would use reliefs that they get from more in Sudan and these places where you could see the language was developing. But then the classical hieroglyphs that we talk about, according to these scholars like Dr. Jeffries and so, they would tell you, well, at that time, it came to its highest. So I could understand that. But why do you consider Amharic the pure language? Is it because it's the emperor's language, or there's something else about it that you could highlight? I mean, if it's that, is that,
Is there any other? Is there any other reason? Because it's the King of Kings language? No. No, that's another good point. Like, even when we say emperor, and being able to like view both the Amharic side of the ledger, His Majesty's time, and also the English side of the ledger, and looking at the Amharic side of the ledger, something that I just said right here. There's 2 points I want to make, but they both kind of cancel out each other. Come again with the question.
Well, why are you saying that? Well, I was just asking why you chose that, but why you chose it? Why you think it's the right?
Thank you.
But I was thinking of America. But go ahead, you talk.
America.
America.
That makes it hard to think about. Yeah, when we say emperor in English, everywhere we see something is translated like in Amharic from Amharic to English, and whenever we see emperor, the word emperor is not used in Amharic. The term usually that translates to emperor in Amharic literally is King of Kings. And I'm not a literalist, but I think it's important. There are other terms to refer to the sovereign, but the term is Negusa Negas. We say, Negusa Negas. We say Negusa Negas in our Western way of saying it, but in the Ethiopian enunciation, Negusa Negest. Negusa Negas. Right? is King of Kings, right? So in translation, some things get lost. Whenever they say Emperor Haile Selassie, and they put the I there, it's really Gurmawi, Nagusa, Neges, Kedamawi, Haile Selassie. You know what I mean? But the translation is emperor, right? See, emperor, I'm not saying that he's not emperor, but in the Ethiopian view, in the linguistic view, whenever we say emperor, we're referring to King of Kings. You know what I mean? Like, I'm on this point about the Atlantic Ocean, because the Ethiopian Ocean. I'm saying, why don't we call it the Trans-Ethiopian Ocean Slave Trade? You see, they call it Atlantic Ocean, but at the time, there was no such thing called Atlantic Ocean. But back to the question about pure. I say it's pure because the process of refining it, His Majesty clearly shows, and we can clearly see that His Majesty's Bible, right? Even the Amharic there is like, compared to Amharic that most Ethiopians speak, it's like us reading the 1611 King James Bible and how we speak today. You see the difference between the 1611, thou and thy and thee and ye, you know, and wouldest and couldest and want. You know what I mean? We don't really speak this way today, but he uses that old classic language. And this is what we find in His Majesty's Bible. His Majesty's Bible is like a bridge between the most archaic Ge'ez, right? And it's been, how can I say, tempered by the original Hebrew and the Greek. In other words, so it's almost been fact-checked. You have to remember that according to the narrative, the historical narrative, Queen of Sheba, King Solomon, 1,000 from each of the 12 tribes accompanied Menelik into Ethiopia. So we had an Israelite kingdom in Ethiopia from the time of Menelik and according to the legend, right? But at the same time, they brought in their documents. The Ark of the Covenant, the priests came in. The priests were the ones who maintained the documents, the files, right? And so from that time, there were older manuscripts, the more archaic thing. And these thoughts and ideas were refined in the highlands of Ethiopia, secure from so much of the other chaos that was going on in the BC world and even coming to AD times. You know what I mean? Remember, Ethiopia was called a hidden empire. Think about it for a moment. Something hidden. Yeah. All of a sudden, it appears. And when we look at it historically, it only started to appear roughly like, about 15 in the 1500s. It became like James Bruce. He went and he was able to discover the source of the headwaters of the Nile and everything. He stole some stuff. You know what I mean? Some documentation. So the process of His Majesty's Bible, when I study His Majesty's Bible, Haile Selassie's Bible, it's the only Bible, Amharic Bible.
I think he stole the book of Enoch too, eh?
Well, he appropriated it, if you want to be genuine.
Oh, okay, right. And the Keber, couple things.
It means you take it as a question of whether you stole it or not. But politely speaking, yeah, he acquired.
He acquired it. Yeah.
But I'm gonna think about the benefit for us. A lot of works His Majesty Haile Selassie, he purposely had sent forward to the West, and I think in his forethought is because he knew that our generation and those before us and those after us would rise up, and with the political situations in Ethiopia that would happen, you know what I mean? That no doubt was not foreseen. We would need a place to access it. So when I refer to His Majesty's the Amharic as a purified tongue, the Amharic comes through the process of the Ge'ez, but the Amharic is a Creole. Amharic is a Creole. You know, they say I can speak Creole. Creole is basically 2 or more tongues.
Yes.
So Amharic is considered an Afro-Semitic language. Hebrew is biblical Hebrew is Afro-Semitic. Let's pause on that for a moment. What does Afro-Semitic mean?
And what's the difference between biblical Hebrew and what was it called? Paleo Hebrew? Which one is Paleo Hebrew? The biblical or the
Paleo Hebrew?
Nobody carry too far, you know. Don't forget your point, eh? Let me write it down. Go ahead.
No. Paleo Hebrew is a trend. It's a trend. Paleo Hebrew, you know, it's like okay, you use computer. Most of the audience will use computer, and other people use computer. You ever open a file like a Word document file, and you decide to write something, and you say, oh, what font do I want to put this in? You know the fonts, font.
Yeah.
You know, Times, Helvetica, Arial. You can choose the different font types. Do different font types make it a different language?
Not the same language, but it was just different font.
That's Paleo.
Okay. It looks different.
Paleo, different writing form, a different writing style, but it doesn't change the language. You know what I mean? Like different of us, we all wrote something like we're in school and you're writing your paper by hand. I write my paper by hand.
So that word behind you, divinity then. What's that? That's in a Hebrew, that's Hebrew style there, or
no, that goes back. That deserves to be in a museum or somewhere. That's old. I gotta take that down. That's actually Sanskrit. That's actually
Sanskrit. Okay, yes, it's true.
My brother, my Lord Priest Isaac, good point.
Yeah.
Divinity, if you look at it, you can read it, but if you look at the style of it,
that's the point I was making.
Yeah, it's in a Sanskrit. Exactly. I just picked up. Look how late, but I picked up. Divinity is in a Sanskrit style. That doesn't make it Sanskrit.
So before I know I carry you, remember I have you here now, so I need this information now. So as far as Sanskrit now, you could give us any idea of its African origin. Empress Naya would like to get some information on that too, as you know, she deals with the yoga and these different levels.
Sanskrit, okay, I would say that in the studies of Ge'ez and Ethiopic, from what I've viewed, that the influence of Ethiopia on the Far Eastern world, when I said Far Eastern world, on what we call Babylon, Iraq, you know what they call the cradle, the crescent cradle of. Some people think civilization began on the Euphrates side. Some people think that civilization began on the Nile. So there's debate of whether civilization began in the Nile Valley, or in the Ethiopia cradle, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Wakanda, Uganda. I mean, even the Wakanda, Uganda is two ways of reading the same letters. You can read the same letters. Like if I write it in Hebrew, right, Uganda, you can read it either as Wakanda or Uganda. Wakanda or Uganda. Just show how like tomato, just different enunciation, but we're basically speaking, the same thing. So some think that civilization began over in like, where ancient Babylon was, but there's an Ethiopia influence according to the Bible, because Nimrod was a son of Cush. And Nimrod, the beginning of his kingdom and everything, according to the Bible, was over there. So some of the Hebrew Israelites, I call them, my family call them the ain't right Israelites, some of them, right, who kind of fight against Rastafari and Ethiopia and such and such. But I understand that because I came through their camps. I actually went through that. So I kind of, know where that's coming from. A lot of them kind of call Ethiopians, and this shocks people, even us. You might hear them say, Ethiopians, they're Babylonians. There's some truth to that, in a sense, if we look at the history of things, the influence of Ethiopia. Like, think about this for a moment. Ethiopia, basically, some say biblically, is Cush, based on the Bible as the point of reference. So we say Ethiopia and Cush, right? So in the ancient time, they say, well, it's actually Cush, right? Well, that.
There, my brother. Okay, I don't know who stick there. I hope everything is well. All right, family. I think everything is all right on my part. It looks like maybe the brother is getting a phone call. Yeah. All right, my brother. You were getting a call or something? I know how these things go.
Was that me? Was that I getting a call?
No, well, I don't know. You went out and came in.
It didn't come through, but But
Okay.
so it's a Creole. Hebrew is a Afro. The Afro part means Hamo, like Ham and Shem, Hamo-Semitic, or Chemo-Semitic. We can call it really, Hebrew is Chemo-Semitic. Hamo, it's a
Hey, stick again, King. Yeah, definitely you, man. Wow. And I just sitting back there to take in, my Lord is sharing some very high information here as it relates to
a Afro culture and a Semitic culture that have come together, and because they have come together, they have blended words.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way of explaining it, it's like if we Hebrew men like Moses have Cushitic wives, we're Hebrews like Moses. He's a Hebrew, right?
Mm-hmm.
So according to the Bible, that he had an Ethiopian wife that Miriam was all vexed about, you know what I mean, and everything. So if they have children, right, they have the Hebrew influence, thus the Semitic influence, right? And the mother, remember, the mother is the first teacher of children. The mother is the first teacher of children. And one's main language in linguistics as one's mother's tongue. One's mother's tongue.
Wow.
The reason why Black people and Ethiopians and Africans speak Hebrew different, like Ethiopians speak Hebrew different in the sense, and why we speak the language different than white and European Jews is because we have different mothers. The mother tongue is what's called the mother tongue influence. You know, our mother tongue is basically the tongue that you grew up in. It influences your way of, like the Jews use a lot of V's, you know, like a lot of V's. Have like a kind of a list in their cultural way of, you know what I mean? If you listen to different peoples, it's because of the mother. So when we talk about the mother influence, the goddess and the mother influence, in the linguistics, we have a thing about called mother tongue, the mother tongue. So because of the mother tongue, as we see in the scripture, in the Bible, even in the Ethiopia history, with a Semitic culture, but I'm saying Black people now. When I say Black people, Semitic, I'm not saying white people. I'm not under this one. Noah had 3 sons. One was white, one was Black, and one was white. I'm not into that. But what I will say is that from these 3 sons, remember, Black people have all type of features.
Right.
From Black features with differences in complexion come all different kinds of people from that Black seed. So that's how we look at the Noah thing. So when we say Ham and Shem, they came together, you know, we have it with the linguistics of Hebrew and we have it with Amharic. But Ge'ez does not have the influence of the Cushitic culture like Amharic does. I just go slow on to bring this back. Ge'ez. Here's the interesting thing. We have the Tigray people in Ethiopia and we have the Tigris-Euphrates River over there. What's the link between having the Tigray people who are people who speak they speak Amharic because they're part of the equation, but their mother tongue is more like Ge'ez. The Tigrinya is more Ge'ez. For example, I'll give you the audience a quick example. In Amharic, we say wuha, 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 or wuha. Wuha is water, wuha, 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 or in the older form, uha, but wuha. That's a Cushitic word. That's like from the Oromo, you know, like the Oromo and the, you know, like in Ethiopia, they have the Oromo and they have the Amhara and the Tigray, right? This gets me into some trouble because people don't obviously like to know what the real truth is and everything. But the Amhara people, basically, culturally, right, are a blend of northern Tigray people who came to the south to flee the Arabs and what was going on in the northern part of Ethiopia. They came to the south, right, and they met up with Oromo people or Cushitic people, and they came together as one people. You know, I remember we was one of the first to bring out the fact that His Majesty's mother, right, is Oromo. So His Majesty has these bloodlines, and the same way we have the Ethiopian, the culture that is a little more Semitic, the Solomon, Davidic, you know, Judeo-Christian part, which is more Semitic, right? We also have the Cushitic influence. But then again, this is Hebrew too. Hebrew has this very same, Hebrew has words in there. Oh, I didn't finish making my point. Wuha is water in Amharic. In Tigra in the north, they use the word mai, like Maya, like the word mai is water. Right? In Hebrew, the word mayim is water too. You see what I'm saying? So I'm trying to show by use of certain words, right? But the structure of the language is what is a little sometimes more Semitic, the structure. So what I find to be so beautiful is that we're having this kind of wrestle, not we, I, but nowadays about whether it's Egypt or whether it's like, the Hamitic or the, or Sumer. But Ethiopia, from my research, and Black people have had influence in that part of the world too. And the tell is in the language. Ge'ez has been used, right? And still is used academically to decipher the Bible. A lot of people don't know this. People talk about the Strong's Concordance. If you get the actual Strong's Concordance, the actual, and you study it and you look through the book, you'll find that it has a lot of Ge'ez in there. Whenever they're uncertain about what a word means, they always refer to languages like Ge'ez or Ethiopic.
But let me ask you. Yeah, it's still on the same line.
Go ahead.
What's the reality of you? They're saying that like Coptic, just like the Demotic and the Hieratic, Coptic and the Gaze are like cursive forms of living hieroglyphs. In fact, I'm sure you know the scholar Ali Muhammad. The black man Ali Muhammad. I've heard him. I've heard others speak of this, but I just can't pull them out by name. Actually saying that the Quran was originally written in Gaze, even before Arabic. But if you don't know of that one, you don't have to pull that one out too far. But
no, I didn't know about that. Actually, what some of your audience might know, maybe the eye knows as well. But actually, English is not my first language. That my father, he used to teach Arabic, actually Arabia Fusa. Arabia Fusa is what they call Quranic Arabia, Quranic Arabic. And Quranic Arabic is actually, what makes Quranic Arabic unique is actually, it has a lot of archaic, it's not really Ge'ez, but it has a lot of archaic terminologies because Muhammad, the prophet, for the audience, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, be upon him. This is just, like how I came up, how I grew up. So I kind of still afford that kind of respect, even though on some topic matters, I will actually go 180, you know what I mean? But just to give respect to believers, to the people who are believers, that the Quran, not so much Ge'ez, but it has Ge'ez words in it. Let me say that the Quran has Ge'ez words in it. It has a lot of words that cannot be properly understood except through, say the ancient languages like Ethiopic. The thing that makes the Quran is that Muhammad, the prophet, he was in a region of the world that was like a crossroads. Like whenever you're in a place, where a lot of different people it's like Swahili. You mentioned Swahili.
Yes,
you mentioned key Swahili. Swahili is a good example. Swahili is a language that was used, some say, for trading, trade. And it's a pure language that it was refined, that all these different people whose mother tongue is another language can switch into Swahili as a medium of communication. So even though my mother tongue might be Oromo, your mother tongue might be another language over here, but we're in that region, we know Swahili. We can use Swahili to take care of business.
Yeah.
So this is like the type of language that Muhammad kind of utilized, because his audience, he was trying to reach out to all the Ishmaelites, to all the descendants of Ishmael, and also the Jews who would hear him. So it was a very unique blend, right? And it's like Greek. It's like the Greek of the New Testament. the Greek of the New Testament is not spoken by modern Greeks. Modern Greeks, some of them can't even really fully understand the Greek. It's archaic, right? Because it was even constructed, the Greek of the New Testament is not usual Greek. You know why? Because it was actually people like us that created the Greek. You know, it was Hebrews, it was Black people who wrote the New Testament. A lot of people don't want to recognize, and it's like how we use English. So Rastaman use I and Iaric and a different way of looking at words and the reality. It's
even
like
Latin,
in the same sense.
Even the Latin, the mother Latin is said to be of an African origin. Well, it would have to be, I mean.
You know, I don't want to put this out there, go too far on this, but maybe we'll pick up on this. But there's an interesting connection, I believe, between some of the Oromo peoples of Ethiopia, Africa, and ancient Rome. It's kind of interesting that there is when I start to look at linguistics, I start to find some strange correspondences that let you know that at some time previous, right, that we all were, as it says in Genesis chapter 11, when it talk about the whole earth was of one language and one tongue. Actually, in the Hebrew, it says the whole earth was of one mother tongue, one mother lip, one female lip, and one set of words. Like when you're reading the language, you can bring it up that instead of it was of one language and one tongue, in the Hebrew, it uses the feminine form for lip. So in translation, that means that it was all of one mother tongue, right? I mean, because they all had one mother, according to the Bible, and they had one set of words. But what happened, according to the Bible, there was this confusion of tongues. So as you begin to study linguistics, you start to see where things get a little tilt. You know, even how we speak English, we can tell where different ones are from. You know what I mean? You can tell that this one speaks with this kind of, and this shows that they're from over here, or this one speaks like, but we're all speaking still the same English. We're still under the same English, but we're speaking it with the different influences that are important to us. So in the same sense, this is what we get to discover in the linguistical. Now, Sanskrit has a link, but that's not our, I would say, forte, but we have the tools to strengthen in that area. But we know that there must be a link with the whole Hindus Kush, the Hindus Kush connection. From those Ethiopians, I know even family and in-laws and relatives, and even my wife, God bless her, I know that there is a familial connection between, we can say, India and Ethiopia. You know, there is, and when you look at the
Eastern Ethiopia, what is his name? The Van Sertima said it was referred to as.
Exactly. But what happened was that the Europeans, or ones who are likened to the Europeans, according to my best study of India and ancient India, right? They upset civilization with the caste and the racist system. You know, they upset the civilization in India. See, this is how you can tell people. It's like, how can you tell a duck, a chicken, an animal? It has certain traits. So we see the same thing that happened to India is the same thing that happened in these days of apartheid, with racism, white supremacy, the same kind of divide and conquer of humanity along racial lines is what basically creates this caste system, right? The caste system was the ancient form, but it was not created by Black people. The Black peoples lived in, the people who were related to the Ethiopia Hindus Kush, they lived in more, relatively speaking, harmony. Even when they fought and they had wars, it wasn't wars like, well, you're not really a human being. You are less than human being. It was just, I disagree with you. Or that water, those resources, I want it for my people and you want it for your people, right? And we can't go back to our wife and children without having these resources. So, bro, we got to fight. That's why those ancient wars were. Survivor. It wasn't because I thought you were less than a human being, that you wasn't really, you was an alien or you was an animal walking on 2 feet. You know what I mean? These paranoid philosophies is what is alien This is the alien, you know what I mean, that we've been dealing with. So India and the Sanskrit, I question some of it, but the yoga and those kind of spiritual disciplines, we see it predates as health. One thing I like about yoga and some of, not yoga, but I would say things like, what's this book called again? Like the prana, when we talk about prana, the breathing techniques, you know, the prana breathing techniques, hatha, the hatha yoga, what they call the hatha yoga, is that, and even Buddhism in certain ways, is that it does not dictate any theology. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
a lot of these ways, they are basically about like a holistic view of living on this plane and being in tune with the higher realms, but allowing one to have their own God ideology or theology of their own. That's one thing that is good about these particular disciplines. Because some people think that Hebrews are as Israelites, we're here to make everybody Hebrews and Israelites. People think that according to the Bible, that our role is to make everybody what we are, or because they're the way they are, we're supposed to be sad. No, basically, according to the scripts, we were supposed to live a certain way, right? And fulfill this, like other nations live that way. You can't get the Romans to change their Roman law. You can't get the Greeks to change Greek law. You can get the British to change British law. You can get the Americans to change American law.
It's interesting you bringing that Israelite there. You know, I want to, since we're talking about on a biblical level, still following the trail of the language, but now even when it comes down to identity. So with the Cush, Mizraim and Cush and these ones, the children of Ham, how do we balance, because ones will bring that argument to you. So as an African, you are a child of Ham, you know, through the Cushite and all of that, and we're Cush and all of this stuff. But yet still, if you follow the chronology of the Bible, the children of Israel are children from the Shem lineage. I know you just spoke of Shemitic, Cush, the blend language-wise. But so are we mixed Israelites and not pure, we are Cushite mixed with Israelites and we hold fast to both, or are we full-bred Israelites and something gone wrong with the mechanics there theologically?
I love how I put it. So regal and royal, and they break it down academically. Yeah. Okay, to that particular point there, I think that's messing us up when we're looking at the Bible. Even though, like they say, they take the shackles off of our hand and feet, sometimes it's still on our heart and mind. And though we might recognize that a lot of people who we thought were white are black. You know what I mean? You know, the people we thought were white sometimes were black. You know, sometimes they do that. Great people in history, we get to learn that we thought were white might not have been white. You know what I mean? Proven that they wasn't white.
From the Bible and beyond.
Yeah, from the Bible and beyond. Exactly. So the first thing is the Table of Nations philosophy. You heard about the Table of Nations? The Table of Nations basically is where they take, where the white European, the white Christians, right? The white Christians and Jews, basically, what they basically did was when they took the Bible and pretended that they were the Israelites and pretended that they were the new church and the kingdom of God and all of this, you know, the pilgrims came to America and the Europeans was running around in their heyday and everything, and Britain ruled 3/4 of the world and everything. They had to justify what they were doing to other people, even to their own Christian people. You know what I mean? In other words, though not all white Christians or white people were necessarily evil, but a lot of them were complicit with evil. They may have not all owned so-called slaves or enslaved Black people, but they all didn't bother with doing anything about it because something must have placated their consciousness. What placated their consciousness was this lie called the curse of Ham.
It's like a good policeman. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I compliment the so-called Europeans, even though I know we Black people had a lot of influence in things that we think were white European and white American. We Black people, anything that's positive, we had some influence in it. You know, we can prove that elsewhere. But a lot of them, they was talking about reading the Bible, and the Bible was so important. One thing I could say about the white man when he came to America that was a little bit different than his previous history he wanted to promote reading and literacy among himself. The Pilgrims and these other people came over here. So he was all about reading the Bible was a way of learning like literacy. They used the Bible as literacy. In fact, the first schools, public school system in America began from a more biblical base, and in the good sense of we want everybody to know about God and be a holy person. So therefore we want them to read the Bible and find the truth for themselves. Sound familiar? His master said the same thing, right? So the intent was a good intent. You know, the intent was a good intent. So people who could read the Bible, white Christians over here, they believe that Ham was cursed. But there's not one verse in the whole Bible where Ham was cursed. Instead, the Bible says something very interesting. Cursed be Canaan. But in the white philosophy from back in 400 years ago, we don't hear them calling us Canaanites. We hear them calling us, saying that we are Ham. It's like the Canaanite is a very mysterious people. Have you noticed that? The Canaanites are very mysterious people. It's like they were there in the Bible. Some people say that Hebrew is Canaanite. Everything is Canaanite.
Yeah.
From my research, the European, the white people, the Indo-European comes out through the once black seed called the Canaanites. The Canaanites were black people, but the European, the Indo-European, his roots and his connection, he is really the Canaanite. You know how white comes from black, according to the dominant and the recessive genes. All the research has proven that. Even they
theology, theory.
Yeah, they prove that this is true. That the other seed comes from an ancient black seed and everything. So it's really
dominant and recessive.
Yeah, that's really the Canaanite. And even some of his own scholars have proven that white culture or Indo-European, speaking of it as Indo-European culture, is really from the Canaanite. So I know this is going to be 180-degree opposite what we've been taught and made to believe, because in America, many of the white preachers have been preaching that black people are Hamites and been preaching that we're under the curse of Canaan. They've been preaching this curse of Canaan, that we are to be a servant of servants. I was just watching a thing about the history of the United States by Oliver Stone, and he quoted this guy, Henry Wallace, who was this guy that was, I think, the vice president. And he said something interesting. I heard it just the other day. I was watching this video series, and he said that we as Americans are not here to dominate the world. We're here to be the servant of the world. He's really our servant. He's really our servant that doesn't have a master. Think about it, what happened. If you have a servant that doesn't have a master, and the master doesn't know he's the master, what would happen? You know what I mean? And so the problem happens when we talk about Ham, Shem, and Japheth, is that the white man has foisted on the world a philosophy that one was black, one was white, and one was gray, or one was yellow, or one was kind of between white and black. Yeah, it's the first lie. It's getting back to the first lie. You have to trace it back to the first lie. You know, like my wife used to say sometimes when we reason with people, how did it start? She always would ask, how did the relationship start? Like, you know, people will come to you and say, yo, I have a problem with so and so and so. And so you listen and say, well, how did this whole thing start? How did it start out? Because sometimes the problem happens in the very beginning. It's things that you miss in the beginning, and later on you get wisdom and you make sure you clarify these things in any future thing. Is that the first thing that they put on us was that all black people are Ham. So who are the Shemites and the Japhethites? See, the real fact of the matter is that Ham, Shem, and Japheth, right, were, in a sense, you could say, if not primordial, but were early black peoples, right? And the thing about black peoples is that, for example, let me just make this kind of point really quick right here, is that who says that Ham just went to Africa? Who said that Shem just went to the Middle East? In other words, if we stop and look at the world today, we will think that the white man was always in America. He was always in Australia. He was always in South Africa. I mean, leave the white man down in South Africa for a little bit longer. He will be telling people that he was always there. South Africa was his ancient primordial ancestral roots, right? So they began off of the lie. The first lie was that Noah had 3 sons. Remember, the Bible says that Noah basically had one wife. So one man and one wife have 3 children, and these 3 children are 3 different races. Come on now. Come on now.
Well, I got the impression.
This is what people would say.
I would say I got the impression. What you say is how they teach it, really. But my vibes is always that Noah and his whole family were original people, original Ethiopian people.
But they were original to say Ethiopian. We're saying they were original
black people. What they call them. Right.
That's the truth of the matter. The original Greeks, for example, the original Greeks, right? And I don't like to use that term, but you have to kind of use some word to at least point to anchor what you're saying. But the original people that inhabited the Isles that they call Greece were called Ionian people.
Ionian. That's the word I was looking for in my mind. Yes, yes.
Minoans. Now, you know the thing about linguistics? Write Ionian, right? If you write Ionian, if we have like a blackboard or whiteboard, Ionian. Ionian, right? Right? That's how they write it, Ionian, you know. But Ionian is a contraction from Javan. So the word actually in the Bible is Javan, Javan. That's the King James.
Yes, Javan.
There's no V sound in ancient Hebrew. There's no V sound. So it wouldn't be Javan. It'll be Yawan. And Yawan, if you contract it, it'd be like Y-A-N, but the sound becomes, how can I say, the Y-A-W-A-N, Yawan, Ion. In other words, it morphs into, and linguistically, Ionians come from Javan. You know Javan in the Bible, we talk about Javan.
Definitely, totally with you.
We go to Kemet, we go to Mitzrayim, we go to the wall paintings. We see a people that's known as the Keftiu, K-E-F-T-I-U is the transliteration, Keftiu. The Keftiu, they came to ancient Egypt and they offered gifts to the pharaoh, so on and so on. But these are, if you on the wall paintings, they're black people. They're black people, and they're basically the people from the Isles of Crete and Greece. These are black peoples. So the original Ionians are even people and testified on the monuments in Egypt. And when you see how the Egyptians drew them, and then you see the Minoan art, you say these are the same people. The way the Minoans drew themselves. But one thing we'll notice is that some of them were dark, reddish, brown skin, right? Some were dark, reddish, brown skin, some were light skin. So even our differences in complexion was not due to a mysterious white man, you know what I mean, lighting us up. In other words, we had differences in complexion, right? Even before the white man, as we know him today, existed. We had differences in features, and different features. So basically, even they call the Ethiopians, white people call the Ethiopians the darkest Caucasians. You haven't seen it. There's a video.
Yeah, come with them foolishness there. Yeah, man. And a race of black. Yeah, man, I hear them.
But hold on. You ever really research the Caucasian people? The Caucasian is a misnomer. The Caucasian people, from what I've researched, these were people that were light in complexion, like whitish looking complexion. But some of them had very woolly hair. I said, my God. I'll send you some pic. They were like white, but they had woolly hair. It was like white people with afros. You ever seen white people with afros? My brother, or somebody who could pass for white, but you look at his hair and his hair is an afro.
And you don't mean albino.
I don't mean albino. And
honestly, you know, if you look at some European descendants today, some of them you'll notice they have a thicker type of hair mass that curls almost into an afro. And if you ask them if they have any black in them, they'll tell you no, not that they know of.
But this is an interesting thing you
they don't have the long, the fall down, just drop down here. It has some girls in it, right? There's almost something like a Latino mix, but they're not Latino though. you know?
I get what you're saying.
Okay,
I get what you're saying. And what you're saying is correct. And this is why the white man is the only man or civilization that is trying to research where they came from. If you notice, all the other great civilizations from east to west,
knows where they're from.
The Egyptians wasn't trying to think, where did we come from? Are we really human? Who was before us? Everybody kind of knew who they were. It's the white man that is the one who is about, because he don't know who he is. He wants to throw everybody else in doubt to who they are. You know, he wants to question whether you really are a black man or not. But really, his quest is trying to find out who he is. You know what I mean? And the whole thing about the Ham, Shem, and Japheth thing is that it's the premise that is off. The first premise is off. When people believe that Ham just means that you are, okay, for example, Ham had a son named Nimrod, right? Nimrod, right? Doesn't we get Nimrod? And now Nimrod starts out his kingdom, according to the Bible, way on the other side of where
Nimrod, I think Nimrod is Cush, son, no? Cush and then Nimrod. But anyway, somewhere, go ahead, you're of that lineage.
And then he had a son, he had a son, Ham had Cush, and then Cush had, no, you're correct, the lineage.
Oh, Nimrod, right, yeah, okay, yes.
The grandson, the grand boy, right? He goes out there, he starts Babel erect, and I don't believe that Nimrod was the one about the Tower of Babel. We can get into that another time.
Yeah,
that he wasn't the one, but he was the predecessor. Just because sometimes our black people wasn't the actual bad guys, sometimes what we did, it allowed the bad guys to capitalize on what we did when it got out of our hand. You know, like something like hip hop, for example. Hip hop was something good. It gets out of our hand, and now it becomes like a poison. It was a medicine at one time, like the whole marijuana thing. It was a medicine. It was in our hand at one time. Now it jumps out of our hand and everything. So he sets up a kingdom way over on the other side of the world. Not other side of the world, but Far East. I call it Far East Africa. Far East Africa is everything outside of the little continent. So Arabia, to me, is Far East Africa. And even Babylon over there in India. Now, you mentioned about the albino. There's a difference between the African, so-called African albinos and the Indian albinos. Now, if you ever look at Indian people who are albinos, you can see the clearest link with the European. The Indian albinos favor more the European features than the African albino. When you see an African albino, you basically see somebody who has a light skin, but you still see the primary features, the phenotypes, right? But when you look at an Indian albino, right, you can imagine what an Ethiopian albino might look like. Think about it for a moment. From an Ethiopian albino, you know how the Ethiopians have angular, some of that have angular features.
Yes.
Yeah, these are our black features. Some black people have straight noses. Some people have high bridges on their noses. You know what I mean? Some black people have flat faces. You know what I mean? I mean, look at some of the Africans, West Africans, and some of the Neolithic or the ones like Sub-Saharan African. They have the same features as Asian people, except for their skin color. If you can lighten up their skin, you'll see that many Africans have the same, you turn their face sideways, they have the same phenotypes as Asian people. This will tell any thinking person that the origin must be connected with these black people, that from black people came all these other features types. So I had to mention that right there at the outset, because the white man gives us a table of nations.
Wow.
When the white man gets into, he gives us, so what he does is this. He says, well, Japheth and Javan, the Isles of the Gentiles, the Mediterranean was established. So Europe, Javan went to Europe. So white man is in Europe now. Therefore, that means that white man must be Javan. You see the faulty logic? It's like, okay. Ham went into South Africa, but white people run South Africa. That means that Ham now must be white people, because the white people we see today are in this place.
Using the logic that is in front of you.
Faulty logics. Yeah, that's a faulty logical
faulty,
conclusion.
yeah.
So this is where they got us into this believing, right? It is true that Noah, according to the Bible, that Noah had 3 sons, right? And that they, from them, all the other people after the proverbial flood repopulated the earth. And they went into all these nations. But just because we can go to the nation today, like we go to South Africa or Australia, you go to Australia today, who's running Australia? Who's up and down in Australia? You see the British people that came from Britain that went to Australia, and the native people either are like watered down, mixed in, or off on a reservation somewhere. You know what I mean? So this is the faulty logic that he has given us. So from that idea, it would seem like we must be Ham, and when we say we're Shem, we are stealing somebody else's thing. Well, then the Ethiopians must have been stealing. Because the Kevin the Guest says that the kings of Ethiopia are of Shem. What does this mean?
And it's interesting, you know. Oh, wait, yeah, the kings of Ethiopia are of Shem. Yeah, but this is what I'm saying is because it's interesting, you know, because as you said, even as we go with the Ham story, we never really take time to really notice that it's not even about Ham. The curse, at least the curse aspect of it, was on Canaan. And, you know, the way you kind of broke it down there, that, you know, even who's calling us Canaan or who's calling us Ham, according to what you're saying here, is the real Canaan. What about as a linguist on them levels there? What about the link with Canaan and the Akan people? I know you would have at least come across them kind of levels of information, where a lot of people in the Akan culture, people speaking Twi, and so connect themselves with the Canaanites and the Can and these different things. And they have some good logics, you know, as it relates to that. I don't know if you ever come across that kind of information there.
Well, linguistic, you mentioned Akan and Canaan and Canaan in that sense. Now, one thing when we study like the Afro-Semitic and the like that, and when we say Afro-Semitic, we're actually putting Ham first. By saying Afro, another way of saying it was like chemo, like Kemetic, chemo-Semitic. Yes. We're putting chem first. Actually, when we say it in that way, this is linguistic talk. This is like in linguistic, in that kind of field, how we kind of use the scientific discipline. So that's why I often like to say that Hebrew is Afro-Semitic, because that means that Hebrew belongs to African people. Because Hebrew is Afro-Semitic. They don't say Hebrew is Semo-African. It's Semo-African. They say Hebrew is Afro-Semitic, and it is Afro-Semitic. That means that in the Hebrew language, there's a lot of influence from the parts of the culture that might be considered today African, you know, instead of so-called Middle Eastern. But when we say a name like Akan, I would have to do a little more research into what does that word mean, because in the language, we have a lot of similar sounding words that are not necessarily the same word. You know what I'm saying? Right, it's like, I still don't know how this goes so much. I think I do, but I always like to ask different ones. Like in the Caribbean, there's 2 ways to say Ras. One way to say Ras, there's 2 ways to say Ras. Ras, like to say Ras, like we say Rastafari. There's one way to say it where, I think in the Jamaican patois, where it can be used as not the Ras of Rastafari. You know what I'm saying?
Of course, yeah, man. Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Not nothing too pleasant neither.
No, but it's the same. Think about it. It's the same word sound. It's a similar word.
Although you stress the ra for the other one, it's stressed.
Well, what I'm trying to say is we have words like that in our languages that are similar, and the speakers of the language don't confound them. So, for example, like when we say Akan and there's a K there, it can either be a soft K as ka, like we can say Africa, or in some forms you could say Africa. So it could be either a soft K or it could be a special K. And these are 2 different.
I like that.
It's a more hard K. My point about Ham is, notice we have Buckingham, New Hampshire. Notice how much ham comes up in place names in England and English society, how much ham comes up. Just the sound of ham comes up. Actually, the white man is, in a sense, a Hamite. I submit to you that the white man is actually a Hamite. We've been saying for the longest that white people come from black people and not the other way around. That white people come from our genes, and it's not that we came from white people's genes. Adam and the original man and the primordial man. The only problem is that we have not put it within the biblical and the scriptural context. That though we may recognize that black people are great and that even the Israelites may be black and we are connected or are those people, we still have not deconstructed these faulty paradigms that says that Noah had 3 different sons of 3 different races. That's spooky to me. That's spooky. I never seen that. You know what I mean? Not like that. Now, they might have looked different as melanated people, like children, like your brother or your sister. You all might not look the same and you have the same mother and father. Because we have genes and genes and genes, that may show up. But definitely not going to be like one is going to be blonde and one is going to be like Asian of the Far East and one's going to be like, a deeply melanated African, and one is going to be like blue, like a Hitler Aryan blonde.
But hear this now. I want to ask you. I have a few more things to ask you before we see it. But I want to ask you now the name of the Christ. Now, when I say the Christ, now the actual name, because we still on language. I know we've dealt with a lot of language this evening here. So the Iesous Christos that we use, is that Greek? Okay, maybe I should say if it's Greek, because I think ones would argue that it's Greek, but is it Greek from an African origin, or are we borrowing a Greek term for the Christ, or is it the Hebrew name, Yehoshua? So what is the actual name for the Emmanuel? When I say the Emmanuel, I mean not Haile Selassie. We know Haile Selassie is the Christ. The Christ from that time that the world speak about. The Iesous Christos then, is that his name, his actual name, or how close to his name can we get from your understanding, my Lord?
How the eye articulates. Give thanks, my brother. I like how the eye articulates the question right there. Because a little bit of the answer I hear in the articulation. I hear some of the answer in the articulation right there. Isis Christos, Iesus Christos. Okay, you said African origin. Greek comes from our African, what I could say is our Afro-Semitic languages and not the other way around. That was Greek. I see Greek from my studies. When I look at ancient Sabian, like the Queen of Sheba, Sabian, and even the like Merwe, like Candace, the Queen. When I look at how they write the language, and I start to study the ancient language, and actually Greek is a later form of the Ionian speech. And the Ionians were people that were related to the Egyptians. We find them on the war mine, Black people. The people that we call the Greeks, who were the albino or the white Greeks, or were the Hellenists, Hellas, the children of Hellas. They call them Helen, right? And they call them the Graikoi. These are people who came to the civilization and upset the civilization. Almost similar basically to what the white man did when he came to America and ran out the native people, or what he did in South Africa, in Australia, is the same thing that he did in ancient Greece and in ancient Rome. So what he did was adapt a Black culture, or a culture that was founded by Black people, and he introduced something. So when we look at the Greek of the New Testament, the Greek of the New Testament was written by ones who were Hebrews, but ones who were Hebrews who were bilingual. So they chose certain words within the Greek language. It's like right now, we write something in English as Rastafari. Some words we don't like to use. You know that already. Some words we don't really like to use as Rastaman when we speak. We'll choose another word. Like overstand. It's like I heard the eye on a few interviews and reasonings where you had to explain to ones overstand and how we articulate. Now, in the same way, if you were to write about the revelation of Rastafari in a document, a text, you even if you knew Amharic or Ge'ez fluently, but you're writing it for the people, you're not going to write it right today. If you are a master of the linguistic Amharic, Hebrew, and everything else, and Rastafari, but you're going to communicate to Rastafari people, you're not going to write it in English. You're not going to write it in Hebrew. You're not going to write it in Hebrew or in Amharic. Like right now, if I want to reason and share this deep truth of Haile Selassie and how I can overcome, I'm probably not going to put it in Amharic. Imagine I publish a book in Amharic. If I publish a book in Amharic, I say this.
You're gone mute. I don't know what happened. You're just gone on mute. Maybe hit the mute button. Yeah, you're gone on mute. Yeah. You went as soon as they say if you publish the book in Amharic, because I get the point, but go ahead.
Yeah, so the New Testament originally was communicated by those so-called Jews, Judeans, who were Black melanated people. Tacitus, the Roman historian, said that the Jews of the first century were of the race of the Ethiopians. Others say likewise. So the name Iusus Christos was the closest way within the limitation of the so-called Greek language that we could communicate. It's like, I compare it with when we say Kedamawi Haile Selassie. When I hear and I see different brothers and sisters write Kedamawi, essentially some write QA, some write QI, some write Q apostrophe, DM, some write KEDAM, AWI. Some write, different ones write it different ways. Right now, in some of the ways that Kedamawi is written, I, as a linguist, would say that's not really correct. But then understanding that it's our people with this true knowledge and a new knowledge that's true knowledge, who are like little children. We're like little children. We just learn like, well, actually, first I is Kedamawi, and it's not at the end like Haile Selassie I, but it's in the first. So we're becoming familiar with it. So in the same sense that when we write in the English Haile Selassie's name, it's not exactly like the Amharic.
Yes.
Or the Ge'ez, exactly, because the name is actually Ge'ez. It's a two-part name. It's not exactly, the way it is in Amharic. It's a facsimile. But the main point of us writing it in English to the best of our ability is to do the best of our ability to communicate the truth of Rastafari. So that's the same thing with the Iusus Christos. No, Iusus. Yeah, see, we say the I as Rastafari and how we've been taught English. We say the I. When we see I, we say that's I. But if in English, sometimes the I can be I as like the pirate, I, A-Y. Sometimes it can be like I, E-Y-E, A-Y-E. Sometimes it can be E. It can be the E sound. Sometimes but now, the I.
But still on the I. But like how the I has so much power. And the power of the I. And even Rastafari, the movement and the people have taken up the I. I don't know if you heard when Bongo Flacco was here and he was talking about them elders that used to talk just in I alone. I, and I. So there's a power in the I. But Rastafari, because they have some friends that are very strict with that right now. The man say man should be stopped saying Jah Rastafari. We should say Rastafari. No, of course we grow in knowledge and we understand, okay, that may have been the exact, we respect that. Rastafari. How you look upon that for sure, as far as using Rastafari, especially in chanting too. Like you hail the king and they say, yeah man, Rastafari, Rastafari. Understanding the power of the I, and look how you're breaking down the I for I. Enough different levels you have the idea, That's why I brought in that question.
There's a verse says like why be like not to be over righteous, and some would say and neither be over ratchet. Not to be over righteous, but sometimes we do get zeal. Some we get zeal. Zeal is sometimes good to show that we still in the living. You know what I mean? So then the zeal is, so we need the zeal to keep the blood, so that we need pepper. We need the heat in with food, you know what I mean? To create the sweat. It's healing. So the zeal of our brothers and sisters is sometimes necessary. Even myself, I had a zeal when I found out that, well, Rastafari don't mean head creator. Yeah, I think I probably heard, or maybe heard one speak on that, and we brought this kind of forward for over some time. We've been speaking to one that Rastafari doesn't mean head creator, but for myself as a Rastafari, I'm not gonna say it was a conflict, but there was a little crucifixion, you know, like like in the higher mystical state, you know, where the crucifixion takes place in the mind as well. Like, you know what I mean? It can take place in the heart.
What did it mean? Isn't it chief administrator, something of the sort?
You talking about Rastafari?
What was the right meaning for it in our English talking?
Okay, Ras means head, and Ras means self in the language. But as a title, Ras as a word means head and means self. So in Amharic, if I say Rase, like Rase is to say my Ras, or Yene Ras, my head. I can also be saying in the language myself, like in expressing in the Ethiopian language, I'm gonna say myself, like it's in the Rase, like Rase, like myself, for myself, as for myself. So as a word in Amharic, Ras means head and self, but as a title, it's like a duke, it's like a kind of a prince, you know, it's like a prince, it's like a head, like a chief. It'd be like chief, like in the sense of a chief, like once like the chief of the tribe, be a chief. So Teferi, the Amharic way of saying it is Teferi. But in English, how do we get it? We got it because the white man and others transliterated it as Tafari. If you remember the old writings, it was T-A and the A had two dots over it. If you look at the old way in the old books, the T-A, like the A had two dots over it. The A had, both A's had two, that A with the two dots linguistically is a sound. But we saw it as Tafari. So the English reader see Tafari, even with those two dots there, as Tafari. So we say Rastafari, and it is true in the English that we speak. But my challenge was, wait, Rastafari means the head to be reverenced, or it can be interpreted as self-respect on a mystical higher level. You know, taking the name, the literal name was like the head or the chief, the prince, to be reverenced, the prince to be respected, the prince to be reverenced. You know, the parable of the Iusus Christos, or Iusus Christos, where he says that there was a rich man that owned a field, and he left it to the husbandmen, like the church and the preachers and the pastors, to maintain, and he went to a far country. And then he sent servants to check on his land. And the servants thought, because the master was gone for a long time, that what was left, it was their thing. So they killed the different servants that the master sent. Then he said, you know what? Perhaps they will reverence my son. And he sent his son. Now, when I read it in Amharic, we get the sense of Tefari that comes out there, because of the idea of reverencing or fearing or respecting is the feri, farah, teferi, you know, is that sense in the linguistic of the language. So we should not be overzealous. It's understandable that we can be overzealous in the sense of saying, well, the correct Ethiopian way Ethiopian speak it is Rastafari, Rastafari, Rastafari. But that mean that we all should start to try to change our voice to say Rastafari. You know, Rastafari, right? We should practice it so we get used to, you know, we vibes it out.
Don't get too fanatical.
Exactly. So I think that that's what happened, because it becomes a new knowledge. And when I first was recognizing that I had to say something on Rastafari, doesn't mean head creator. I thought I heard Bob say it, but Selassie. I heard different minds say it. I heard different elders say it. And I'm saying,
no worry, man. We progressing, man.
Are wrong. So you know, the Ira told me, the Holy Spirit, the Ira said, say it like this, say it as it is, but don't have personal. You know what I mean? At first, I was a little bit overzealous. Let me just be honest right here before the priest, and just acknowledge before the priest right here that initially I was a little overzealous. You know, how come man saying this? That's only half stepping. I was on all those levels. But then I had to recognize that, well, you, myself, the spirit said, the Irish, like Haile Selassie, the small still voice said, you have been put in a position where you wasn't even speaking English as your first language. English is not even my first language. You know what I mean? But I was able to master English.
Yeah.
English is easy, more or less, but even my first language. So now, how would it be that I had a little advantage to help to edify the body of Rastafari, and I come, you know, like because I can know this. Ones are just learning this. So to put it across in grace, and what about those who said it meant head creator? I said, that's grandfather. You know when they say something is grandfathered in or grandmothered in?
Definitely.
For the mother and father. They didn't know these things. Whoever, it's like Sata Masagana. Sata Masagana doesn't mean give thanks, right? Now, see, Sata in Amharic should be Seta. Seta mean he gave, Seta. Saying Sata means he erred. Sata,
he erred.
Seta means to give. Sata, right, means he erred.
Yeah, that's one.
But if you look in the dictionary and nobody teaches you, nobody is like the Ethiopian eunuch. He obviously was a Black Jew. He went to worship. He was reading the book of Isaiah. So that means Isaiah was something that was interesting to him. You know what I mean? He went to Jerusalem, the Ethiopian eunuch. He went there. And when Philip said, my friend, do you understand what you're reading? What did the Ethiopian eunuch say? Boy, get from here. You think me ignorant? Of course we know what we read. No, what did the Ethiopian eunuch say? How can I unless some man guide me? Yeah. That reminded me of the Rasta man from such a time. Is man still want to seat up and reason. Even though I know thing, I want to reason with my brother, and I can always learn more thing. Right? But like some man may be arrogant. Right? Can't teach me nothing. So the Ethiopian eunuch even showed that the necessity of reasoning. So Sata, the problem was this. I had to try to figure out why were we saying Sata Masagana. I want to heal up the Abyssinians because actually my wife and me had met one of the brothers. I don't know which exactly brethren it was. I remember him by sight, but I don't want to misname his name. But they actually did a re-recording of it because they must have came across some of the things that we were saying and everything, that Sata Masagana. But I was trying to say at the same time that let's not be like in a knee-jerk hypocritical reaction, because the error was innocent. It was us looking in a dictionary and
so it's good still to say Rastafari then.
Of course, I mean, we're still speaking English. We still are speaking English, and how we got to know, like, for example, you know why a lot of us say Selassie? If you read the papers, the newspapers from back in the 70s and the 60s and 70s, the newspapers in the West often said Emperor Selassie I. That's how I say his name, Emperor Selassie I. That's how they say his name. So we over here as the people of the land, you know, the people of the earth, Rastafari. I read a newspaper. See, here's the Emperor Selassie I. Yes, Selassie I. That's how we went about it. There was nothing untoward. We had no scheme or whatever, but we're growing. As we grow, we recognize that the Western media was too, they took advantage, how can I say, they took a great license to kind of just say his name as Emperor Selassie. This is how the West do. This is how they do in the West. Yes, so, yeah, we can still say Rastafari in the sense of we're speaking it in the English way, but now we should also have the education to know that.
But you see, I was talking about, but in reverence now, because you know, if you get in reverence now and in reverence and churchical and so, and you may want to get it as correct as you think it should be. But anyway, we can hit that the next time. You know, I want to share something with you now that I want you to somewhat comment on here. Yeah. Tell us about the bridge here.
Abacadus.
Abacadus.
Okay, Abacadus. Now, okay, yeah, this is the best platform to share this. My mother-in-law, I call her Emma Bate. Almaz. Imabate is like lady of the house, mother of the house. It's like a way of referring to the, the lady of the house of honor and mother of the house. Almaz mean diamond. That's my wife's, her mother, right? And enough respect for her. She shared with I and I a story, a testimony some years ago. Because we were speaking about, Abba Caduce, because we heard about this one favor His Majesty that is named Abba Caduce. And I was surprised that she shared this, but I share this right here to the best of my recall, is that she said that, yes, there is a one named Abba Caduce, and some do see this one as perhaps His Majesty. So there is the Ethiopian thought. This is not just a Rasta thing, because people think it's Rasta man. I see some man with dreadlocks in Ethiopia, Bahitawi, and boom, this is His Majesty because it's favorite. No, there are some Ethiopians. In fact, the former is the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. He passed away. John bless
Mele Zenawi.
No, not Zenawi, not Mele Zenawi. But I think his name was Walder Georgis.
Okay. I think so. Yes.
I'll share with you. He is the one who said that His Majesty is a holy man, and His Majesty did not die, and His Majesty ascended. This is an Ethiopian Prime Minister. I think he was like 1, 2, 3, like about 3, no more than 4 prime ministers ago. Yeah, 4 prime ministers ago, because we had Melis, then I think we had Georgis, this man, then we had Dessalines, and I think then we had Abiy. So about 3 to 4 prime ministers ago, there was an Ethiopian prime minister who actually shocked everyone when he said that His Majesty, Haile Selassie, Haile Selassie is a holy man, that His Majesty didn't die, that His Majesty ascended. This is always what I'm saying to the eye, my brother, that we have a prime minister of Ethiopia, right? Straight thinking prime minister that's saying that, listen, as far as His Majesty is a holy man, and spoke of His Majesty in such a reverence. You and I would say, this man must be a Rastafari, must be a Rasta man, in what he was saying and what he was revealing. So this prime minister himself said that he did not think His Majesty died, and His Majesty is a holy man, and that His Majesty ascended. Now, based on that, I compare that with what my own mother-in-law told me and my wife, that there's something that has been circulated, a testimony in Ethiopia, that this same one named Abba Caduce, right, or one likened to Abba Caduce, but I would say based on her story, it must be the same Abba Caduce, this monk or priest, who they say is like a doppelganger. Doppelganger mean like you kind of look just like somebody. Like somebody look like somebody else, is like a look-alike or very similar alike for His Majesty, that he was on a hillside somewhere, like up in the mountains somewhere, with other Bahitawi or other priests or monks, right? And I guess he has his own disciples, this one known as Abba Caduce, and he was reasoning with them on a mountainside somewhere in Ethiopia. And he had the Ethiopian flag wrapped around him, right? And that all of a sudden, while they were reasoning, I know this is going to sound a little bit fantastic, but then
I heard it from there already. I heard you speak of it already.
Okay, and that he, give thanks to him, brother. He basically, as they were talking to him, he started to ascend. And they started to look up, went up. Yeah, and as he went up, like as he was going up, they said that he went up, like as a bird goes where the sun is, and you can't see the bird no more because the bird is hiding in the light of the sun and everything. And all he saw was the flag unfurl and kind of float down from the sky to the ground. And when she said this, it's like we both looked at each other, and I think we asked to repeat certain parts of it. But now I share that because that was a personal testimony on a personal visit to my mother, my Ethiopian mother-in-law, right? And she said that. Then I came across the article with Walder Georgis, the former prime minister of Ethiopia, right? And I even went and researched it and read what he said in Amharic in a newspaper. And so this is on record that he says that His Majesty, a holy man, and he somewhat seems to imply that Ethiopia is somewhat in trouble until it reconciles with what happened, until it reconciles with what happened with this holy man who is not dead. Even Muta Baruka, just to Muta Baruka for a moment, is he did this reasoning. I put this out here because hopefully this can surface again, where he went to Ethiopia. He went to Ethiopia around 1992. This was the time that's called the year of the Creator, the year of the Irada. Goes 100th anniversary of the birth of Lich Tafari, Rastafari, the man-child, the birth of Rastafari. It was 100th anniversary, 1992. So he went to Ethiopia, and at the same time, there was the bone lies, because they said they found some bones.
Him and Coco T sing the song, and Dennis Brown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he went himself to Ethiopia. I think it was part of IRI FM or his radio, you say ministry, his radio service. He went over there with a translator, and he asked his question in English, and he had it translated in Amharic, and the people, regular people, would speak and would give testimony about Haile Selassie. And there were many people of the land. I'm not talking about the intellectuals in the city, ones who might have be overly ambitious. I'm talking about the plain people in the country, the simple people. They were all of the belief that His Majesty was alive, and many of them even said they had seen him. So on this picture here, I say that it is very compelling. It's a very compelling picture, right? Because officially authenticated in every aspect that we would like to, right? But I put a lot of merit that there is a lot of truth to this picture. The likelihood of it being His Majesty or related to a righteous order that is related to His Majesty should be very clear. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. So, because this same one, there's another brother who put out some video some years ago. I don't recall the brother, his name right now, but he's the first one on the internet that I seen that actually shared this picture. I knew about the picture beforehand, but he was one of the first ones that actually said that Haile Selassie is still alive, and he testified using this picture. I want to point to that brother there because he was one of the first. The name's slipping me now. We're bridging them, man. Yeah, I just mentioned right there, but it's not as though for I mind testimony and testify and bear witness necessarily put all of our stock of I faithful liberty that this is absolutely His Majesty. But I say it's very compelling from all that I have investigated.
Especially how you put it down, I mean.
Yeah, because it's a testimony.
Interesting.
The Prime Minister of Ethiopia, the Prime Minister, Walda Georgis, right? I think his name is Walda. Walda means like the son of George, right? And knowing that His Majesty, the George and the dragon, is a very important symbol with His Majesty, as we know. How he testifies before he passes away. He testified that His Majesty is a holy man, and even that Ethiopians need to check themselves for what they did, and he didn't die, and he ascended. It makes me pause and say, Chan, I'm reading this on the internet about this Ethiopian former prime minister, and my wife's mother, right, a humble Orthodox believer, right, that loves His Majesty, but is not really Rastafari. But I would say in spirit, she's Rastafari, but overtly she's an Orthodox Christian. She's testifying to this as well. I'm saying, you know what? me just gonna watch and see how things develop.
Don't like a Rastafari to me. If she telling you the king was on a hill talking to 12 people or however, sound like a Rastafari to me.
Yeah, I don't know how many people was there, but it's definite that, how can I say, my brother, you know, there's more things. It's like, they say we only use like 10% of our brain, or maybe mind, you know, where they only use a certain amount. We see things like pyramids, and we see Lalibela. Look at Lalibela. Look at those rock-hewn churches. Their testimony, the Ethiopian testimony is that one right there, the next one. The Ethiopian testimony is that it was men and angels that built it. Are we going to say, oh, angels don't exist? It must only be men. I don't know what they mean by
engineering science has now said that an organic science is over a period of a couple of 100 years, you know. I know this. I know the believers ain't gonna go down too well with that one there, but they say that it was over a period of like 300 to 500 years. All those temples get built. So,
I think the time was a little bit shorter, but I do think that it was more than just overnight.
Overnight,
I
right?
think that was just, but I think that it was done. Remember, it was 11 of them or so that were done. So it was done so comparatively quickly that it might have seemed, like right now I live in Brooklyn here. Brooklyn is under gentrification or gentilification, Brooklyn,
like
right? The way Brooklyn was back in the days of Biggie. You know, back in the days of Biggie, where Brooklyn at? I tell people that we messed it up. We said where Brooklyn at, and it made all the Gentiles want to take that from us too. But if people who know what Brooklyn was back in the 80s and 90s, if you come to Brooklyn today, it's not the way it was. You know what I'm saying? How places can change amazingly in like 10, 20 years, right? And it can totally change that you won't recognize the place. But the Lalibela thing is interesting too, because some Ethiopians play fast and loose with Lalibela. They try to say that they were not necessarily of the Solomonic lineage, but that's a whole other thing. Yet they are the ones who built some of the most magnificent things. See, there's one thing I want you to hear, King.
Yeah.
Some people say the Solomonic dynasty was interrupted. Others say it wasn't. In His Majesty's Constitution, it says that his dynasty, our dynasty, is without interruption. Some clergy and other Ethiopians teach that it was interrupted. So here's the question. Was it interrupted or not interrupted? Haile Selassie says it's without interruption. But some church and clergy and academic people today says that it was interrupted. I just want to put that on the table. We can return to that one. His Majesty says without interruption. So some people think that Lalibela and the Agwes, the Zagwe dynasty was ones that was not of Solomon and Sheba. And I want to point that out there because I think that is where some of our presence, like the Rastafari and Black people connection, I think that we have this kind of, how can I say, that the Zagwes may not be accepted because I think that some of their blood type favors more of the Negro. See, what happened is that we are peoples that have come together, right? And some don't consider them to be part of the Solomonic lineage, but His Majesty in the Constitution includes them. And exactly. I just pointed out because those are important points. It's like the Ham, Shem, and Japheth.
Right, because they're supposed to be of the Levite dynasty, the Levite bloodline. The Aaronic.
They were, but they were not. How can I say? It's like the tribe of Judah is a tribe of Judah, not the tribe of Benjamin. But they both are Israel. You know what I mean? In other words, the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin might fight, but they still are both Israel. You know what I mean? Just because we fight or we disagree, don't mean that we're not of the same thing. But sometimes our disagreement amongst ourselves can become so intense that we might make ourselves believe that we're not of a common seed. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes disagreement between people can cause that. Like look at Eritrea and Ethiopia historically. The Italians were only over there for 40 years. For 40 years initially. Come to the next picture. You wanted to show that, and that other one, the one
the Turin show.
Yeah, the Turin, the Turin, the shroud.
Turin
I'm not saying that the shroud necessarily, but here's the amazing thing. I was able to overlay His Majesty's face over this face, and I saw it, according to science, where it matched up on many points. You know what I mean? I just thought that was interesting. So this Turin thing, we might think it's a white guy.
Yeah, he looks like Bagalaga, man.
Yeah, we show one of our videos that the key points of correspondence, like when they facial recognition,
right.
And in Rome, they have a bronze statue where they took the actual shroud and they made a 3D representation. I must say, when I looked at the 3D, it was bronze too, and being that color too, that bronze color.
Look like the King of Kings.
I looked at it. It looked like the king.
Niggas,
I just want to say, and it reminded me of the Abra-Kadus. And I say, well, I put that on the table too.
Yeah, that's why
our faith began before we had all of this. Think about it. Our faith in Rastafari began before we knew about the Abba Kadus, right? And what has been said. Before we knew about the Shroud of Turin and the facial features matching His Majesty's face almost perfectly. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that these are the reasons for our faith in Rastafari, but having faith in Rastafari,
I like
come across these interesting
things. Yeah, right. So even if we never see this, that didn't mean it.
Like the Osiris connection I heard I speak on, the Osiris connection. I said like that. We're not saying that His Majesty is Osiris, but we're saying that isn't it interesting that these things kind of all relate to these people and we people? You know, just put that in. That's all. We don't have to make it's not proselytizing. We're not trying to.
Even with the shroud here, you know, that story is it's a miraculous story too, you know. It might lead the straight thinking person to disavow it, but yet still, as you say, you still can't run from the fact it looked like the king. As weird as the story sounds, it still look like the king.
I hope ones and ones can agree with me. In our ministry and service and our serving, we never try to proselytize. You know what proselytation is, like proselytizing someone. We never try to like make a convert. I don't think you really have heard me say, you better be a Rastafari, otherwise hot the fire burn you. You know what I mean? Or you're going to hell or something, fire and brimstone if you're not. No, it's just a reason with my brothers and sisters Rastafari, hopefully to strengthen their liberty, strengthen their faith, and to be strengthened by them, and also to share with others that this is concerning, like when I say the King of Kings Christ. So when I'm looking at, like when you mentioned about the Jesus Christos in the name, right? And Emmanuel, right? And you said, you know what I mean by Emmanuel. I know what you mean by Emmanuel because I'm looking at it from the point of view of Haile Selassie. In other words, because of Haile Selassie, I had new interest in the Bible. And because of Haile Selassie, my new interest in the Bible, like years ago, caused me to find these things that I never knew before. You know what I mean? These things I never knew before, this whole other half of the story, right? That makes sense. But before Haile Selassie, before His Majesty, and before, I would say, the light of Rastafari, I grew up in a home that was influenced by Christian and Muslim teaching. My father, you know, under the Muslim, you know, Islamic idea, my mother a Christian. And I told my father, he asked, which way would I go? I said, well, basically, I'll probably go more with the Christian, Judeo-Christian, for the reason that Muhammad talks a lot about Christ. And we don't find Christ talking a lot about Muhammad. I mean, I know Muslims say there's prophecies, but, you know, I find the other way around. But it's because of Haile Selassie that my faith...
Christ came before Muhammad, you know? So, yeah. He didn't get a chance to talk about it.
I grew up in an environment that was exposed to it, but it never took deep roots. You follow me?
Of course, yes.
Until I began to hear about Haile Selassie. You know what I mean? I began to hear about Haile Selassie, Ethiopia, the Black Jews, and the more I learned about His Majesty, the more and more I began to learn about a whole other side of the story of what I was already into, Israelite and being a Hebrew.
King.
You know what I mean?
Our time is on, I'm saying?
Yeah, man. No. I give thanks, brother. I give
so many things. But you know, again, now the people need to know how they can definitely find you and get in contact with you. And so we want to make that very clear right here, especially on the YouTube. You know, I was to ask you about why they took you down, you know, but we got to do that the next time. That's a whole thing. But anyway, I'll give the closing remarks when you're done. So YouTube, website, whatever it may be, so the people can clearly know how they can contact you right now.
All right.
So this video, I'm going to be premiering the video. So you're going to be semi-live video. Well, not semi-live, but even if it's recorded and it, anyway, we never did. We always live, but it's going to be premiered. I'll let you know so you yourself could be in the chat if you desire.
All right.
Tell us.
All right. Okay, so Rastafari Jews, Rastafari Jews. Yeah, we're going like that. Rastafari Jews on the YouTube. Yeah, is one of the channels that we currently are podcasting on. as Priest Isaac already mentioned, yeah, we can go into the reasons why. Some people would say we was doing too much, you know what I mean? And speaking on other things outside of just like Torah, scripture, Bible, the liberty, faith, we were seeking to apply knowledge to actual other areas. And that's when it gets dangerous, when you kind of weaponize the truth. You know, when not what we believe, but how we can live this and how we can change things. That's when it becomes dangerous.
That's proof that is the truth you're hitting, you know, because you're not aggressive. Nothing about you sounds, well, you're militant, you know, but not militant to the point like, oh, you sound, you know, like a takeover. And, you know, you're not harsh, you're not rash. As I say, not fireburning nobody. You're just cool and calm, even the way you talk. Just, yeah. So to take you down, that's a serious statement.
Whole thing. And the Tuskegee, the black Tuskegee, the fighters, the airplane fighters, the fighter pilots, and remember Colonel John C. Robinson, they said, whenever you get a lot of flack, it's always because you're right over the target. So bombs away. Whenever you get a lot of flack, you know, the flack is like when they're in the plane and you're in the air and you see missiles blowing up around you. Whenever you get a lot of flack, you know, that means that you're right over the target. So whenever you're getting a lot of fire for what you're saying, that means, like you said, it must be the truth. You're hitting on something, and all you can do is they might shoot you down, but keep dropping the bombs. You know what I mean? Keep, you know, kamikaze it. You know, whenever you're getting a lot of flack, that means you're hitting some point.
So it's Rastafari Jews. I know you have a lot of podcasts that you do too, differently.
Well, yeah, the podcast. Okay, the links can be found at lojs.org. That's our main website now. LOJS for the Lion of Judah Social or Society at ORG. You know,
and especially for a lot of new people.
I will give this number right here.
A lot of people, yeah, go ahead. Because you're still doing the Amharic classes, etc., right?
Go to what you're saying, because I also want to heal up Rastafari TV as well.
Yeah, because you're still doing... You're doing the Amharic classes as well. You still do all of that as well. And if people want to learn Amharic, no?
Well, I'm still doing the Amharic classes, but my Amharic class is more focused on the scripture, the Bibles, like scriptural Amharic.
Okay. Well, all right.
My wife is the Amharic for Rastafari. The Amharic for Rastafari channel, where the native speaker, Rastafari, Ethiopian, goes through a lot of just basic, like conversational. You know what I mean? Because we can learn Amharic from a biblical perspective. Like we don't know things about the scripture, the faith, which is more like maybe a mystical, educational, you know, way of studying it. Or you might want to just know conversation. You might want to go to a restaurant. You might want to go to Ethiopia. You might want to say, hi, my name is so-and-so. How you doing? Conversational Amharic. So we're offering a conversational Amharic, like for travelers. And then we're offering more detail, like biblical Amharic, what we're studying along with going over the scripture. So different. My wife on that one has the Rastafari Amharic for Rastafari. Amharic for Rastafari. Also, you might find that for ones who are interested in the language, and hopefully coming forward soon on the Rastafari TV, the platform, Hail Up the Matriarch, Sister Fanai Sunlight, Site Media, our digital angel. I hope that I can also have your homeschooling and your offerings, your classes there as well. She's seeking to have a site that is social media and internet, but is beyond just the limitation of YouTube for different streams of, we say, the Rastafari consciousness. I mentioned that right there because hopefully that would be the next platform where we will be having a lot of our old and new works. But I would
Rastafari TV.
Rastafari TV, and this number here, this is a YouTube link, a YouTube number. I would say once text it, I would say text me, text either I and my sister wife, either a few others might get it. I would say I would not advise to call at first, because sometimes we might be on like if we're on the air, we shut down certain things so we can focus and everything like that. And then later on, it might be early in the hours of the morning, but definitely leave a message, 646-494-2388. This is a contact number. It's a link to one of our WhatsApp. I think.
Call us again one more time. Take your time. 646.
646-494.
494.
2388. 646
88.
Yeah, 2388. Yeah, 646 494 2388. That's 646 494 2388. And this is a point of contact. So I would say drop a line, or if you're on the WhatsApp, ones can link that up, maybe leave a voice message similar to the way the Eyes Empress. That was the Eyes Empress, Naya.
Empress Naya.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With the Eyes Empress, or I know on the previous broadcast.
My Honorable Empress, as well as my administrative director here at the Priest Isaac's Institute of Holistic Knowledge. Full royal package.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, give thanks for her communication, because actually, it was my my administrator as well, my secretariat, who had got the message and said, yeah, Priest Isaac sent a link. I was like, Chan, get out of it. Can you say this on outro right here? Do you know Isaac Haile Selassie, or of Isaac Haile Selassie? You probably seen his videos out there. Say it again.
Oh, no, I know who you're speaking now. Yes. The Ras with the locks tie more time, he have his lock tie. Yeah. But I haven't seen nothing from him in a while though.
He's actually one of the adopted children of Haile Selassie. He's one of those same youths that we see, the orphans that was adopted and raised by His Majesty. He is one of them. That's why the name Haile Selassie, Isaac Haile Selassie. So what happened is we posted a video on Rastafari Jews, and he had made a comment, kind of a little fiery, because he must have took the point the way he took the point. He made a comment, and when I saw it there, I was checking the Rastafari Jews site, right? And I was like, I was thinking it was the I, because I saw Isaac. When I saw Isaac, I thought it was, I said, Priest Isaac made a comment. I said, why you said that? Yeah. But I thought it was good still, in a sense that if the I even cared to even make a critique. Remember, open rebuke is better than secret love. Open correction is better than secret affection. So I give thanks anyway. But it was, when I saw that, I read it again. I said, oh no, this is Isaac Haile Selassie. This is His Majesty's one of His Majesty's adopted children, Isaac Haile Selassie. Okay. And so when my wife said that actually the link came from the I, I'm thinking like, ain't this something? First, it was the next man, right? Isaac Haile Selassie.
Yeah. But I never knew that virgin was adopted by the king. Wow.
Yeah, that's part of his testimony, that he's one of the adopted.
He's Ethiopian.
He is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know he does a vingi. He does a vingi in the Amharic and in.
Yeah, but I thought it was wow. Not that nothing I was saying against him, with no, just but just that I didn't know all of that. That's I
was going to comment to his comment. I was going to comment to his comment. I held the video because he actually took down. I have a screenshot of his comment, because people say things and then they'll delete it. So sometimes I take a quick screenshot just to have the evidence, so I'm not just talking to myself. And he deleted his comment. So by the time I was going to respond to him in a video, a little video, I was going to get a little bit testy, but it's just out of love. And he removed the comment. I said, ain't this something? And then the I link forward. I'm just saying that, wow. Blessed be the name.
That's interesting. Wow. That's some deep stuff. Now I get everything full circle. That's some deep stuff.
Now you see more heights in that, right?
I get the story. Good. Wow. My Lord, we'd have to really seal it here.
Man.
Give thanks for the love and give thanks for all the works. Obviously, we're going to do that again. I wanted to ask you about Rastafari unity, but I think that have to be some other time, But any sealing words that you have, though? Any sealing words for the any sealing word?Maybe you can even touch upon that in your sealing words. But
Rastafari
swift. That's gonna be too big to touch, but let's see what they can do.
Well, Rastafari unity, I would say, let's just turn to the teaching of His Majesty and the teaching of the King. You know what I mean? On all these things, His Majesty has left us enough word, sound, enough example. You know what I mean? for us to at least turn to that as a primary point of focus. But I just give thanks to be on this platform here, on my Lord Priest Isaac's platform right here. It's been a long time. I'm a great admirer of the I's works. And on background, I like to reason with the eye on a few things that I had picked up and some other things. I like to share with the eye because there's some areas that I know we might have to have our own brotherly discourse on, because there's some differences. I want to get the eye's point of view. I respect the eye's point of view because I agree with a lot that the eye put forward, but there's some other areas I like to just reason with the eye. And please support my brother's homeschooling and that particular work. I like how the eye has developed that. Also, if one can tune in, to the podcast. I'm not going to be long right here. I give thanks for being on this platform. I just want to seal up with, may the Rastafari, Kadamala Haile Selassie, bless the eye, keep the eye, cause his face, his grace to shine on the eye, in Yeshua's name, in his Christ. I say, Jesus Christos, the King of Kings Christ, Father and Son, one, Emmanuel. The power be with I and I, Rastafari. Yes, sir.
My Lord, give thanks. And of course, we link again, man. Salamta.
Salamta Tenaslin, Rastafari Shalom. Shalom, give Rastafari.
Thanks. Oh, give thanks. What a blessing to be there with the great brother, Rasiadonis. That was a real wonderful sit down. Yes, family, give thanks, Abba Kedos. I don't know what the item think. As I say, I'm running this. There should be a live chat. I hope that the live chat should still be there if you're watching this video a second time around, or the rebroadcast. So what do you think of this? Do you see this as Haile Selassie? Or do you see it as someone that is carrying a similar spirit? It definitely have a similar look, as I was saying, when you observe even the tunnering, the shroud, and all things thereof. Interesting. But anyway, give thanks for your presence with us. Give thanks for such a joy. I want to remind the item, of course, of the Tiger's Nest, of course, every Monday to Thursday. In fact, when we seal up right here, you need to join us on radio, and there's nothing else there to do but come to radio. And man, we have a lot of information, not a few, right there at radio. And no matter what you have to do, no matter if you're cooking stew, whether it's you alone or three or a few, you need to come and join us on Radio Anu International. All the link is in the description below. Just go below the video in the description and just press the link that says Radio Anu. Just press it. Bam! And then you have an opening to a whole world of information, knowledge. You can go to sleep with Radio Anu on. You can wake up and make sure Radio Anu cooking. You can go and be breakfast Radio Anu, lunch Radio Anu, you're on the move Radio Anu, you're in the office Radio Anu. Make sure you tune into Radio Anu. If you love knowledge, Radio Anu always have something different and spicy and fresh and music and vibes. And Radio Anu, talking about the international flavor, the universal spice. How do you get to Radio Anu? Priest Isaac's Institute.com, priestisaacinstitute.com. And remember, family, you can definitely make your reservation for your virtual tickets. Remember, the double hike is on, the spring equinox is on, the yoga retreat is on. So make sure you get in tune with us for your virtual tickets. This time around, it's a whole different thing. It's more than just the double hike. It's more than just the cannabis tour. It's more than just the island tour. It is also the yoga retreat that will be fully hosted by the Honorable Empress Naya. This is something that you want to definitely see. Of course, when you go to our website and you check out Redemption Healing, you definitely come across all the information you need to get as it relates to what the Honorable Empress Naya is offering. So for sure, my family, give thanks for your love and give thanks for your presence. All you have to do is contact us. Of course, the email, priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com. That priestisaacinstitute@gmail.com. And definitely you could even purchase your virtual ticket. And of course, you'll get your virtual receipt, and that will let you know that you are definitely ready for the spring equinox. You will be there on the morning hike. You'll be there on the evening hike. And for sure, you'll be definitely there, depending on the type of ticket that you purchase as well for the full yoga retreat. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful session, you know, in the name of Farai. So we definitely give thanks for your presence with us. And as the Royal Majesty was saying, don't run away from the international homeschool, brothers and sisters. Talking about the international homeschool classes, over 40 classes, well, at least the biology edition. I don't know how many of you have contacted us to get your free video or a free sample of what we do on the international homeschool. I'm sure you thought I was going to say how many of you are on the homeschool. No, how many of you have called us? Not on it, you know, just call us or link us up and say, yeah, man, priest, I would like to get a free, you know, look at what's going on there on the international homeschool. Send me one of them African history class now and let me see what's going on, man. Send me one of them astronomy classes, the priest. So let me just see. Let me put the little child in front of it. Let me see if they say, wow, ooh, daddy, I want to see more. If you do that, I'll give it a try. You know, it's up to you. Very economical, family. Trust me, this ain't no joke. I may be laughing, but this is as serious can get. You know, talking about, as the honorable brother just said a while ago, you know, it has evolved. So now we are not only offering the African heritage and astronomy, that's African heritage and astronomy. We are also offering the biology edition. And of course, specifically that is showing you exactly, you know, that we are bringing these subject areas, even though it's biology, you know, it's still done in an Afrocentric way. It's all about the mind of the young ones, my family. And of course, the children would love this. You'll be surprised the amount of things that they learn. When you're a young child, 3 years old, will be telling you about the atoms. What you see, you think I lie. Purchase it and see the man. When your young child, 5 and 6, will be breaking down the skeletal system and explaining to you the different parts of the digestive system and this star and that star and pointing them out to you. Okay, that is exactly what you get when you definitely partake of the international homeschool classes that we have available for you. So yes, family, all you got to do is visit the website, priestisaacinstitute.com. That's priestisaacinstitute.com. Everything I'm speaking about is right there. Even Radio Anu is right there. Everything is right there. You know, that's the home and that's the hub. You can live there, you know. All the videos, maybe some videos you're not seeing on YouTube, they're right there. All of it right there. Or shop our merchandise. Remember, going even into the Lenten period, don't forget to stock up on all your good food and all your good products and all your raw nuts and all your agave and all your natural honey and of course all your sea moss and all of the good stuff. All you got to do is again contact us. Everything is right there on the website. I'm talking about priestisaacinstitute.com. Just give it a visit. Give Radio Anu a visit. I'm going over there right now to keep our vibes and hold a meditation. So join me there, family. Radio Anu. The link is in the description below. Have some more nice vibes to share with you. But we're coming off of the YouTube right now. Love, love, family. Life giver and the keeper of life. Give thanks to the good brethren, the rabbi himself, Brother Adonis. Love Rastafari sabbatical. Remember to check him out, Rastafari Jews. Rastafari Jews on YouTube. Go and subscribe right now. Life giver and the keeper of life, Rastafari. Holy Manuel, Selassie, Jah, Rastafari. Blessed love.